I'm going to walk you in this video through a prophecy of America, all the way through, given to the first founding father, George Washington, the general and the first president and the first founding father of the United States, that he said was given to him by an angel that appeared to him at Valley Forge. At the disco, he asked not to be disturbed. He was worried about his country and he was praying. It was then when he looked up and he saw an angel. What do angels typically say in the text, the prophets? They say, "Fear not, for I am with you." And by the way, when it references an angel of the Lord, now that's not specified in this text, that's a reference to Jesus Christ. So astonished for I had given strict orders not to be disturbed, and yet an angel appeared in the room with him. A mist accompanied the angel and surrounded. And then he heard a voice stating, I'm taking you straight to the prophecy, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." While at the same time my visitor, this angel, extended its arm eastward, I now beheld a heavy white vapor at some distance, rising fold upon fold. This gradually dissipated, and I looked upon a stranger scene. Before me lay spread out in one vast plain all the countries of the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, and America, 4 countries. And I saw rolling and tossing between Europe and America the billows of the Atlantic, and between Asia and America lay the Pacific. "Son of the Republic," said the same mysterious voice, "look and learn." At that moment I beheld, as it were, a dark shadowy being, like an angel, a dark angel, a demonic angel, standing or floating in midair between Europe and America, dipping its hand in the water of the ocean. In the hollow of each hand it sprinkled some upon America with its right hand. The ocean, or the abyss, the abuso, represents, even in occult text or ancient text or biblical text at all, the abzu represents I pulled from the abyss a little bit of water and drinkled it off there, a little bit of the abyss, and I sprinkled it forth. Immediately a cloud rose from these countries in the year of 1777. So that year again is 1777. I'm going to be reading you this prophecy right off of the God in a Nutshell Project website, where I put down the history of the prophecy and the actual prophecy itself and its elements. This is the history of America. The Revolutionary War began in 1776, and George Washington, they didn't want to be slaves. These rebels that were starting this republic that would be called America, where many of you sit today, just like the Hebrews. They did not want to be slaves under the Egyptians and others around the world, the Irish. They were willing to fight against a large empire that was coming in. This empire was comprised from Europe. And I said, no, we want freedom. We want to break the chains of bondage. And all hope looked lost. And it was on October 17th of 1777, notice the dates, 1777, that there was a breaking in the Revolutionary War that made America. It was nearly 200 years, it was more than 200 years ago, but about 200 years ago, in the year 2020 when I'm making this video. And George Washington records, well, not George Washington, but a soldier of his records in the city of Philadelphia that he had a visitation by an angel. While it remained stationary from Europe and joined mid-ocean, for a while it remained stationary, and then it moved eastward until it enveloped America. This is the Revolutionary War that he was in the heart of, that he was about to win. The angel is stating, "Son of the Republic, you are not going to die in the snow." 18 miles from where they took what looked like your last hope, and they're mocking at you, George Washington, back there in New York with their medias, and they're stating they've sided with the enemy. Washington, he's going to fail. And that's what you're reading on every paper. But that's when an angel came in. Fear not. Imagine how they felt when he came back victorious. Immediately, The cloud raised from these countries joined mid-ocean. For a while it remained. Then it moved westward and enveloped America in its murky folds. Sharp flashes of lightning gleamed through its intervals, and I heard smothered groans and cries of the American people. It was the Revolutionary War that he would win against the British. George Washington is often recognized as going into the thicket to pray. In fact, soldiers commonly, there are many reports of Washington walking into the woods, and there would literally be a light, a supernatural light that would emanate forth. Sometimes it was a green light, sometimes a light that would come forth, to the point that even UFO hunters use some of the texts about Washington. George Washington, Valley Forge, was just 13 miles outside. They had lost Philadelphia. Washington and his men actually, they had taken a lot of devastating losses. So the empire of the British was coming. They were already there, but they were taking wins left, right, and center. It was pretty almost clear. Hope was looking lost. They were in the snow. It's recorded that Washington had lost 2,500 men, and that's just in the records of names of men he had lost to the snow, to the elements over that winter, not including the war. And they were running low on supplies. Yet still he would pray, and he would say, Lord, thank you for giving me breath of one more day. The war between this band of American rebels, this is off of the God in a Nutshell project, where I put up actually 3 videos on what your country is going through right now while I make this. One is about Q in Hebrew. One is about the riots. And one is just about the prophecies of 2020. I recommend you look at all of them. This war between this band of American rebels, led by Washington, what would become the United States, a land that would break the bonds of slavery and give freedom around the globe and prosper. Led by Washington and the new republic they called America. They were dying in droves against the empire of the British. They wanted freedom. They're willing to pay for it in blood. They lost extensive and key battles in 1777, and hope looked bleak. George Washington and his Continental Army suffered in harsh weather, dwindling supplies, and the British was now only 18 miles away. The British were stationed in relatively comfortable Philadelphia that they'd just taken, and they were recorded as laughing and drinking and mocking whilst preparing to wipe out any memory of the remaining rebellion of Continentals as soon as the weather allowed. The American rebels in their fight for freedom were more or less alone. Now, the French would come in and help after what happened. Okay, an angel visited George Washington. That's what I'm about to read you. Prophecy of America. Prophecy of the destiny of America, given by an angel to George Washington. Then the wind changed. They were taking losses. There's no food. But everything changed at the Battle of Saratoga on October, notice the dates, October 17th of 1777, 3 sevens. And I heard this mysterious voice saying, Son of the Republic, look and learn. And I cast mine eyes upon America, and beheld then, this is after winning the war, villages arise, and those villages turned into towns, and those towns turned into cities. And those cities sprang forth one after the other until the whole of the land, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, was dotted with them. Again I heard the mysterious voice say, Son of the Republic, the end of the century cometh. Look and learn. At this, the dark, shadowy angel turned his face southward, and from Africa, this is the Civil War, this is the entrance of slavery. From Africa, they were selling out their own kinsmen. In Africa, I saw an ill-omened spectra approaching our land in its ships, bringing in their ill-omened, wonderful gift. It flitted slowly over the towns and cities of the latter, and the dark cloud covered them, and the inhabitants presently set themselves in battle array against each other. That's the Civil War. And as I continued looking, I saw a bright angel on whose brow rested the crown of light, on which was traced the word Union, bearing the American flag, which he placed between the divided nation, saying, "Remember ye are brethren." Instantly the inhabitants, America, casting their weapons, became friends once again. The Union came together again and united around the national standard, the United States, the Republic. Again I heard the mysterious voice say, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." At this the dark, shadowy angel placed a trumpet to its mouth and blew 3 distinct blasts. There's always 3. It's believed by many that it was only 3% of the colonists that were even willing to stand up for freedom. Only 3%. And with that 3%, they were dying in droves. And yet even outmanned, outgunned, and they didn't even have food, and they were in weather conditions, while the other side was arrogant, its elites, and it sat back as socialites and said, "Ha ha, we've got them." And they all mocked at Washington, even through their medias. And they said, "We'll take him like nothing, watch." But the angel said no. They were eating and drinking and being merry, considering how flippantly easy it would be to destroy Washington and give you the freedoms that you have today. And every day he was walking into that thicket, recorded by his men, and saying, "Lord, just give me another day. If you would let me win, I'll give freedom to these men, and we're willing to pay for it with blood." Washington, our first president, who is recorded as thanking the Lord for every morning and for another day, destroyed the Northern Army of the British. The Revolutionary War lasted for 8 years. It was the Lord working through George Washington that brought prosperity and freedom that has spread from the United States to the world. It was the hand of God that did that. This is the last one. Son of the Republic, look and learn. At this, the dark, shadowy angel placed a trumpet to its mouth and blew 3 distinct blasts. And taking water from the ocean, he sprinkled it upon Europe. Europe has become so atheistic, it's not even funny. I watch video after video of them doing occult things that come out of Europe that are unfathomable in many instances, and will draw, involving children, and will draw tears to your eyes. From Europe, from Asia, China, not the Chinese people, but the government there. From Asia, and from, Africa, right there, the same country that sold out its kinsmen. Asia has been buying the African gold. There's something called the gold dinar. It's what got Gaddafi killed. Who's that gold belong to? Does it belong to Asia and Africa? Does it belong to you? Let's keep going. I saw these 3 places, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Then mine eyes beheld a fearful scene. Each one of these countries arose a thick black cloud, 3 of them, and they joined into one. And throughout this mass there gleamed, a dark red light, dark red eyes, like the dark red-eyed wolves, darkness that go forth from the dark figure. Dark red eyes. What are the red eyes? Always represent the red light. Communism. By which I then saw hordes of armed men, who, moving with that dark cloud, marched by land, air, and sea to America. Our country was enveloped at that time with its own dark cloud. You feel a dark cloud on your land? You feel a dark cloud on your land? And I saw these vast armies begin to devastate our country and burn those villages and towns and cities that I had beheld spring up. and my tears listened, and my ears heard, as the thundering of cannon and clashing of sword and shouts and the cries of millions. And I heard again the voice of that angel say to me, Son of the Republic, it doesn't end here. Look and learn. And when the voice had ceased, the dark, shadowy angel placed that trumpet to its mouth one more time and blew a long and fearful blast. And instantly, as it were, 1,000 suns shone forth from above upon me and pierced and broke to fragments that dark cloud and the source therein that had enveloped America. And at that same moment, the angel upon whose head still shone the word Union, and who bore our national flag in one hand, the right hand is always going up, and the left hand is always reaching down. Right hand reaches up, left hand reaches down. The right hand, so he bore our national flag and a sword now in the other. Where the left hand once was, is now bearing a sword. Notice these things. Descended from the heavens, this is the angel, with a legion of white spirits. These immediately joined the inhabitants of America, who I perceived looked nigh overcome at that time. They were overcome by darkness, but these spirits gave strength. And when those spirits seemed to join with the men in America, they immediately took courage. Have you lost courage? Pray for courage. God gives courage. Fear not, for I am with you. And their broken ranks seemed to renew in new battle. Again, amid the fearful noise of conflict, I heard that angel's voice say, Son of the Republic, you look and learn. And at the angel's voice, that shadowy figure again tried to dip its hand in the water and sprinkle it on America, but instantly the dark cloud was stricken and rolled back. Together with it the armies it had brought with intent to conquer America, leaving the inhabitants of this republic victorious. Then I beheld the villages and towns and cities springing up more glorious than they were before. Then the bright angel, planting Azur's standard, had brought in the midst of them, cried with a loud voice and said, while the stars remain and the heavens send down dew upon the earth, so long, Son of the Republic, shall this union stand. And taking from his brow the crown upon which was blazoned the word Union, he placed it upon the people and knelt down and said, To God in the heavens be glorified with this land. This land is paid for by the blood of Jesus. Every bit of it. That's why there's such a war for it. And that's its origin. There's demonic stuff here. We'll go through it, and we're going to go through that. But this land was founded on prayer and the blood of Jesus Christ. The scene instantly began to fade and dissolve, and I saw at last nothing but the rising, curling vapor I had first beheld. This also began disappearing. He's in the room where he first started praying and saw this angel. And the mist is leaving, and he found himself back in the room standing before an angel. This reads almost like a vision from Yohanan or John or Enoch or anyone else. Particularly any of your apocalyptic writers. Son of the Republic, what you have seen is thus interpreted. There are 3 great perils that will come upon this republic. And it tells you he's going to win, doesn't it? All hope was lost. I'm sorry. So those moments. All hope had seemed lost for him just an hour before. Every report is you're losing men, and an angel has just said, Your republic has a destiny unheard of in the history of this planet. They're tearing down your founders as I make this video. The most fearful is the third. But in this great conflict, the whole world united against your republic, God's republic, shall not prevail. Let every child of this republic learn to live for his God, his land, and his union. With these words, the vision vanished, and I started from my seat, and I felt that I had seen a vision wherein had been shown to me the birth, progress, and destiny of the United States. So this was published in Philadelphia, and there's disputes about it. I wasn't there when it happened to George Washington, nor was I there when the old soldier told it, but I'll tell you there's a spirit about it that rings right. I lay that in your hands. And Philadelphia, in the book of Revelation, there's 7 churches in chapter 2 and chapter 3. And those 7 churches were literal churches, but they're also ages of humanity. Philadelphia, everybody wants to be in Philadelphia, so it was the missionary church. America is the missionary country. We have sent more missionaries to the world than any other country on earth. And we've sent freedom to more nations. We freed the bonds of those African ships that came with their ill omen. They sold out their kinsmen. We fought in this land, gave our blood in this land to free people starting right here. That was a blessing to those people. Some people interpret blessing as a curse. I'm astounded with this. Astounded with this. How many see those that bless them? No good deed goes unpunished. This has been a country that has broken chains of bondage around the world. Philadelphia is where this was published, and Philadelphia was right outside of Philadelphia in 1777, where George Washington was praying and saying, Lord, can you give this fledgling country? Please save us. We want to break our chains. And that is the prophecy of the land that was paid for by blood, and this experiment of freedom that has a hand of God upon it, that we today call the United States of America. And the Exodus is a model of the book of Revelation. In the book of Revelation, you have 7 churches, and one of those churches is Philadelphia. This is the missionary church. The largest missionary efforts in the entire world come from that church, the 7 churches, Philadelphia. And that doesn't refer to the actual American city, Philadelphia, but God does these word plays with everything. And Philadelphia was 13 miles outside of Philadelphia, where George Washington thought all hope was lost and he was losing soldiers by the drove. The medias at that time, the newspapers, the big fancy newspapers in New York. New York's been a center. The evil always has its eye on New York. Were mocking at George Washington while he was out there fighting for their freedom, to buy with blood the freedoms you have today. In the Exodus account, and many people don't know, it always starts a cult. So all occult, even at the beginning of your story, your Bible, it always begins with a snake. So plague 0, or the message to Pharaoh begins with a serpent. He's throwing his stick down. That's actually from the Pharaoh, the Exodus' tomb. There's me standing atop the dark altar in the heart. They call that the Unholy of Holies in Egypt, in the Karnak temple. Right here is the wall of slaves. The most prized thing that Pharaoh had was his slaves, his Hebrew slaves. That was right on the wall, right next to the most powerful, the Unholy of Holies, the dark altar. This was like his bank account, man. Most prized thing he owned were those slaves. He wasn't going to let those go. I'll tell you right now that, and over at God in a Nutshell, get a copy of these. It's a history and walkthrough. And I've got videos up right now that walk you through the occult, the hardcore occult, the source of it. It's important to understand the origin of evil. The origin of evil and what it believes. There, right there, there's the Vatican, and the Pope has a Tiamat. Tiamat was an ancient serpent in a Vatican cathedral. Over on God in a Nutshell, I'm going to read to you. In fact, I'm going to do that record right now. And for those of you that subscribe to God in a Nutshell and become partners with us, I'm going to walk through you right now about the Tiamat and the Inky over on godinanutshell.com. And we're going to talk a little about In Merkur and the Lord of Arata. Come over to God in a Nutshell, get a copy of these. It says knowledge shall increase in the end. Knowledge shall increase in the end. You're not at the end yet. I'm Trey Smith. God bless every last one of you and your families. And praise God for your independence. Pray over your president. Lord, put a protection on the president of the United States and every one of you and your families. I'm Trey Smith from God in a Nutshell. God bless every last one of you and your families on the other side of the screen. And since so much deals with the occult, it's important to understand the history behind some of the occult. Jesus said to be wise as serpents, yet gentle as doves. So we probably ought to start in. So when we look at occult, we probably ought to start in at some of the basic elements of it in your modern age. And the hero of modern occultism, or one of them, would be, of course, Aleister Crowley, seen here with the eye on top of his head, the pyramid eye on top of his head. Now that symbol right there, it's only really appropriate that symbol begin to take its rise again as you lead towards the end. That symbol is the 70 in Hebrew. Now that's the Hebrew symbol 70. So I'm going to read to you what it is. Now this character called Lamb. This was Crowley, and this is a drawing by Aleister Crowley with the pyramid and the eye on his head. And this being that he drew, called the Way, well, what Aleister Crowley said was that this being here would physically manifest. This is his drawing of it. In fact, Aleister Crowley is famously quoted as stating, today they call them angels and demons. Tomorrow they will call them something else. So one of the things I'm starting in with on walking through some of these books over on God in a Nutshell, particularly for partners, is just a basic understanding of what occultists have believed. This video that you just watched is dedicated to all of the men and women in law enforcement in the United States, in the service of the United States military in any shape or form. And it's also dedicated to every single man or woman who has given their lives on the highest altars of sacrifice for the freedoms that we have in this nation. And let me ask you one other question. Why are there so many in this country that are so desperate and anxious to give away for free what others were willing to die for? God bless every last one of you and your families on the other side of the screen.